It's Big Ten week, Husker fans. Hello, everybody. I'm Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra. This is the three keys to the Nebraska-Illinois game. 400 sellout, the rare Friday night home game for the Huskers. It'll be a night game on Fox, and it is a big deal. Both teams are ranked. This is the first game between two ranked teams inside Memorial Stadium in a long time, really 11 years since 2013. And I'm not sure that these two teams are necessarily going to be in the top 25 at the end of the year. I do think Nebraska might be. I'm not sure about Illinois. But for this moment, this is a very large game coming into this week. Two top 25 teams. And one of the things that you've heard this week so much from Matt Rule and his coaches and his players is that word physical. Marcus Satterfield used the phrase fist fight, that metaphor. But there's a sense within the program that they have to match Illinois' physicality this week. Physical, right? They've got to, if Illinois punches, Nebraska's got to punch back. I think there's a sense of like, okay, the first three games were what they were, but this game's going to be physical, and then every game from here on out, it's going to be physical. So you've kind of heard that mantra over the first 3 days of this week. Is that going to be one of my keys? It's not. I think Nebraska's physicality and Illinois' physicality will probably kind of cancel themselves out a little bit. I think both teams are physical. I think both teams will play hard. I think both teams will hit hard. I don't know that that's how it's going to be decided on the field. Here are my three keys. One, quick game. And quick game can be meant in both ways. I think it's going to be a quick game. I don't think it's going to be a 4-hour contest, a little bit like the UTEP game or the Colorado game was. I think this will be a little bit shorter, mostly because I think, Nebraska's going to want to run the ball. Illinois is going to want to run the ball. There's going to be some ball control. There's going to be some punts. I don't know that each team's going to throw the ball 40 times. I think the quick game is going to be important there. Who can control the game early and then run that clock down? And then the other thing I think you're looking at is that Nebraska wants to have a quick game when it throws the football. They want to get the ball out to their playmakers in space with blockers, whether that's Shakori Barney or Thomas Fidone or Carter Nelson or Jamal Banks or Isaiah Nayor. Whomever they get the ball out to, they want to get it out to them in space quickly and then let those guys make plays. And I think Nebraska has shown already this season that it's very important for them to use that quick passing game almost like an extended run game. Remember, Dylan Raiola is not a running quarterback. They have not really run the zone read except for that one where he sort of took it and he ran around the end against Northern Iowa. They're just not doing a lot of it because I think they want to keep him upright and healthy. And remember, he's only been sacked once. He hasn't been hit that much, to be perfectly honest with you, which is a good thing. But if you take away that quarterback run game, which is something they used a ton against Illinois last year with Heinrich Haarberg, you have to find ways to stretch that defense horizontally. Otherwise, they're going to pack the box, and they're also going to say, hey, we're going to pack the box, we're going to run a quarters defense, and we're going to make sure that your deep routes are covered, and we're going to cover your underneath routes, and what are you going to do? Basically, the Iowa strategy. And the way that you stretch defenses horizontally is to get it out to the edge and let them make plays. And I think Nebraska's done a nice job of that so far this season. So quick game. You got to watch the way that Nebraska throws the ball sideways. I know people don't always love those sideways passes, but they're important because they're like an extended handoff, and it's a way that, again, you get those linebackers moving side to side. You get them tired, and you also get their eyes going out to a different place as opposed to right inside the tackle box. Second key, 4-on-5. What do I mean by this? Well, I'm talking about pass rushes. The 5 is Illinois. They often bring 5 guys. They really do. They don't quite have a bear front. So a bear front is when you have 3 guys right interior, guy over the center and the guy over the 2 guards, and then you have 2 guys out a little bit. They don't quite have that, but they have what you would call a 50 front. They have a guy that's over the center. They have guys that are somewhere between the guard and the tackle, and then they often have guys that are outside the tackles. This kind of looks like a 3-4, sort of, but they're on the line of scrimmage. So it's not an off-the-ball 3-4, like you would see, I don't know, with the New England Patriots. This is more like a 50 front that Nebraska used to run way back in the day when Broderick Thomas was the outside linebacker, and they had middle guards, and it's kind of like that. It's a good run defense, but it's a good pass rush too. And their 2 top pass rushers are Seth Coleman and Gabe Jackas. They've been there a while, and they both come off the edge, usually outside the tackles, and Nebraska's going to have to figure out a way to block those guys. They don't necessarily bring a lot of pressure from depth. You could call that a blitz. I call it pressure from depth unless it's 6 guys, then it's a blitz. They don't necessarily bring a lot of guys from depth, So it's a lot of guys that are up on the line of scrimmage, and they're creating one-on-one matchups. That puts a lot of pressure on the tackles, Bryce Benhart and Turner Corcoran, and that puts some pressure on the interior guys. You know, Henry Lutovsky's going to have to step up. This is, I think, his 6th career start. He's going to have to play well. Ben Scott's going to have to play well. Justin Evans is going to have to play well. And Nebraska's going to have to block that. On the flip side of the coin, Nebraska's liked putting this 4-man pass rush together. I think Nebraska's interior pass rushers of Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmaker are good. Ty, in particular, is a very dangerous and physical interior pass rusher. He can actually get to the quarterback, make a move, and get there. He's not just pressing the pocket, but he can actually get to the QB. Nebraska's edge rushers are interesting. They have a bunch of them. So they've got an M.J. Sherman. They've got a Prince William Yellen. They've got a Cam Lenhart. They've got a James Williams. They've got a Kai Wallen, and they're all a little bit different. But there's a couple of guys, Williams and Yellen in particular, they really come off the edge of the ball, and they're trying to get around the tackles, and man, can they fly. The challenge with that is that sometimes a quarterback understands that's happening, and he moves up into the pocket. And Ty Robinson talked about it on Tuesday, of being aware who he's paired with as a pass rusher. If it's M.J. Sherman, it's going to be more of a power rush. If it's Yellen or Williams, it's going to be more of an edge rush. And Robinson has to be aware based on what they do, what he's going to do. Luke Altmaier, the Illinois quarterback, likes to get out. And if he's able to get out through the middle and step up, he can make a lot of plays. I like Illinois' 2 receivers, Franklin and Bryant. They're good players. And Nebraska's got to limit Altmaier's ability to get out. Now, Illinois will give up some negative plays. They do. Their offense does give those up sometimes. Gave them up against Central Michigan. Gave them up against Kansas. But they're able to make them up, too. Altmaier will, if it's 3rd and 14, you can't count Luke Altmaier out because he's not just going to stay in the well. He's going to try to get out of that well. And so 4 on 5. I don't know that Nebraska's got the advantage there, folks. I'm not entirely sure. I think Illinois' pass rush is pretty good, and Dylan Raiola is going to have a different kind of challenge on Friday than he's had in the previous 3 games. Last one is in the red. And I'm talking here about the red zone. Maybe I'm even talking about the green zone. The red zone is anywhere between the opponent's 20-yard line and the goal line. The green zone is basically the 5 or 6 yard line to the goal line. So that's where you really need to put touchdowns in. And then there's some other zone outside the red zone that I can't remember the name of. That's somewhere around the field goal scoring zone. Sometimes people have used the word green for that. But the green zone for me is in that 5 or 6 yard area. And that's probably where Nebraska needs to get a little bit better. They've got to be able to punch the football into the end zone. If they're going to use some of those rub routes down on the goal line, they've done that a couple of times with Thomas Fidone. He hasn't gotten in the end zone. Can he turn that ball up and get across the goal line, or do they need to figure out some other personnel there? I mean, Thomas Fidone is a super powerful blocker, and he's great straight line. He's not Wan'Dale Robinson coming out of the flat. And so you've got to find a way to get that flat receiver to be able to turn up quickly and make one guy miss. It's very hard to run around all the guys and get to the end zone at the pylon if you're starting in a certain spot. It's hard to run around all those defenders. It's just not easy. Usually there's a blocker out there for one thing. So a lot of times you want a guy that can catch it and then maybe cut that up. Is Fidone that guy? Do they have somebody else they want to try with? Janiron Bonner or somebody else? Maybe that's something to watch. Can they get a quarterback run game down there that's not Heinrich Harburg with 3 lead blockers plunging into the line? I think that might not be a bad idea. And I think Dylan Raiola is going to throw some touchdowns down there. But it's important. I think Illinois is shown to have a really good red zone offense so far this year. Caden Fagan is a power bully back who can just kind of run over people. And then they've got some shiftier guys. At the same time, I think Nebraska's got to find a way down there. Maybe it's Emmett Johnson. Maybe it's Dante Dowdell. They've got to find some new wrinkles. Do I think Marcus Satterfield will have those wrinkles? I do. I thought he called a really nice play with Corey Barney on that sort of pitch end around for a touchdown. I thought that was well conceived and well called. Marcus Satterfield is not afraid to do different stuff, and I think that's one of his advantages when he has the right personnel. And I think at this point they almost have all the personnel that he would ever want. It's a little bit inexperienced, but they have a lot of the pieces. Is Carter Nelson an option down in the red zone? Well, I don't know what's going to happen exactly in this game. I do favor Nebraska a little bit. They're an 8.5-point favorite. I do think Nebraska will win this game, but I'm not entirely sure. I think there's components of Illinois' team that are impressive. You're not just going to run the ball down their throat. They're not going to probably let you do that unless you're willing to run your quarterback, and I don't know if Nebraska's willing to do that. You're going to have to hit a few big plays downfield. Do I think Dylan Raiola can do it? I do. I think he's a good passer, especially the deep ball, and I think he's going to draw some pass interference penalties. Probably not any personal fouls, but pass interference penalties in this game. I like Nebraska to win it, maybe about a touchdown, maybe 24-17, maybe 21-14, somewhere in there. But I do think this will be a one-score game, and I think it will be a very interesting one-score game. Okay, that is our 3 keys for Nebraska, Illinois. I'm Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra.